By the way, just check if my voice quality is okay. Can you hear my voice? I'll hang up now, but where are the people here? Hello? Don't do this.
So guys, Niam is here. I am transferring the webinar to him. Just a moment.
Yeah, hello everybody, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, should I start right now?
Okay, Niam, good to go.
Good to go? Okay. Hello everybody, welcome to this small webinar. Just a second, let me just try to, yes, there we go. Our topic is how to stop making user interface design that sucks in India. Okay, I know this is controversial, but well, we have to get on and write this topic. So here we go. Just one second. Right. So I think first we need to understand the problem. Why a user interface design sucks in India? Often I've seen that it's usually a developer who's striving to be a designer. Now there's a critical difference between a developer and a designer. A developer is thinking markup languages, codes, technology, and everything. You may have a background in development, that's not a problem, but when you have to sit down and design something, whether it's an ATM machine or a website or a mobile app, or even something as simple as a slide presentation, you need to think like a designer. And a designer at that moment needs to switch off any knowledge of development that he or she may have at that moment. And design is a very abstract concept. In fact, in India, I've often seen that people are only discussing development issues or markup when they should be discussing design. And how do you discuss design? Pencil, scratch pads, sketching, not writing, sketching. If you make notes, those notes are to augment the sketching. You know, and you've got to think of non-verbal communication. I'll talk a little more about the non-verbal communication in a minute. So, the second most important reason why design sucks in India is because almost everything that is offered from here is imitation, right? I don't see us ever setting a design trend or ever thinking out of the box. It's outright imitation, right? One of the best examples that I can give you is about 2 or 3 years ago, this concept of parallel X came into the design. Well, there you have it. All people trying to be pretentious designers have started using parallel X in India. Okay, without even thinking whether the content commands it or not. The second big problem here is plagiarism. Oh my God! You see, now this is a cultural issue. In our culture, plagiarism is not really unethical. I don't know how to explain this. It is the ultimate form of appreciation. It's like flattery. It's like imitation of this form of this. However, your job is to be authentic, to be original, to come up with something that is built from inside out and not outside in. And I've often seen that a lot of work, even in advertising, even in print, is absolutely plagiarized. So I wish there were engines with which we could catch plagiarized design. A few years ago, there used to be a very, very interesting web engine. I could simply upload a logo that I had designed or somebody else would design, or a client's logo, and I would ask the search engine to look for similar images, and we would often find something. Sometimes even if I've done an original design, I would upload it to this engine, and I would look for any design that was similar. And if I found somebody somewhere had concurrently thought of this, I would change it. But in India, this kind of due diligence is not seen, either by the designers or the agencies or even the client. And in fact, the worst problem is if a client asks you to plagiarize something. That's even worse. Usually what do? I simply walk away. I say, you're overpaying me. Something silly. Okay, just a second. Let's try to move to the next screen. Okay. The third reason why interface design sucks is because we are stuck with templates and or themes. So if you're into Drupal, you simply open the Drupal template, just modify it, and you put it into WordPress, Ditto, and so forth. Now, especially if you're into PowerPoint slide presentations or any damn thing, then there's always a template somewhere which will just do your job. Templates are actually meant for non-designers, and they're meant for clients, and they're meant for end users, and for mom and pops, schools, or somebody who just wants to quickly get up there and get something out. You know, it's like wearing a tuxedo on hire. It's not real. It's not going to express you. The worst problem that I've seen with templates is that you simply change the banner or a logo and you assume that now everything is settled, that now it's an original or your client's website. That's so untrue, especially, you know, when you start scrolling in or delving deep into the content. Often I've shown this to people that you simply open any design and you scroll up so that you can't see the masthead or something, or the so-called branding or wrappers, and then you can't understand whose website or whose app or what is this damn thing. It can belong to anybody or everybody. So I think this approach of templates, I think templates should be banned. We should probably have a method where anybody who's just doing template work is understood as somebody who's not really understanding the concept of design. All right, next. Of course, this everybody understands, and a lot of people who are from the design fraternity here are going to chuckle. But I think us Indians, we have this thing about obedience to a fault, you know? And we just bend over backwards to comply and conform, you know. So the logo is great, but the client's dog doesn't like it. It didn't wag his tail. So could you change it? Could you make it bigger? Or, you know, the assistant producer or somebody's wife thought that, you know, it would look wonderful if it had a little flourish in it. Or the worst is, you know, when somebody who's absolutely not oriented in design and has zero sense of aesthetics comes in and makes a rather strong judgmental opinion about design without understanding whether it solves the problem or not. The worst thing is that designers don't stand the ground. They just say whatever you say and they simply bend over backwards. So that's the first problem. They comply to the client's needs to a fault. The second problem is that they cannot enter into debate. They think that debate means disobedience. So design cannot happen if there is no debate, if there is no discussion. The third thing is this keen and anxious sense of conforming. So you'll never see design that's breakthrough from India. If you want to prove that you're a good designer and not an amateur, then what you try to do is to show that your design conforms either to a recent trend or the latest trend if you're very good, if you do a lot of research. But other than that, there is absolutely nothing else in the design to explain what is going on with the design. So this is a big issue, this conforming to design, this conforming to trends, conforming to whatever is stable and secure and safe. Design is supposed to dare. It's supposed to touch. It's supposed to do the unthinkable. It's supposed to make you gasp. But in India, we're only looking at satisfaction. And I think that's a big, big, big issue. Next, this is, I think, a very deep collective consciousness issue in India. It's a subconscious thing that I've noticed, and I often chuckle about it. We seem to find a lot of comfort in clutter. We actually find comfort in congestion. If your client's paying you big money, I don't think you should just not show anything in the design. You must show everything that's possible, on a single static page or a screen, or even a design artwork, or even a film. You must overdo it. You must not only embellish it, you must over-embellish it. There is this anxiety that I've seen in young designers that they must show each and everything possible. I mean, even letterhead designs, simple thing like that, or even a business card design needs to have every damn thing possibly thrown into it. And the clutter just doesn't end there. Needless lines and drews and color swatches and dabs of color and different fonts and lots of typesetting and boxes, line boxes, blinking text, you name it. The more the merrier. It's like a carnival, except that it's not like a carnival. It's like a fish market. And it's interesting to see that not only do designers find comfort, but so do customers, so do clients. They feel that now we can justify our jobs to our superiors. That look, I did this. So here's a little, thought experiment. If your client was Google and you were asked to design the homepage interface for the search engine, you would never, ever, ever, ever just show a white blank page with, just the bar that asks you for the search terms, and that's it. You would never do that. You would think that, did I get paid so much money to just show a white screen with this? Absolutely not. I must show every kind of relevant search engine, non-relevant search engine, news from India, Bollywood news, sports gossip, your astrological sign for the day, joke of the day, links to email, stock market, God knows what you're trying to search for. Let's throw in every damn thing, and let's hold lots of meetings to understand this. The interesting thing is that if Google were an Indian company at that time, whoever would take the design would get it approved and show it to the superior and say, yes, yes, this seems to solve our problem. That's money well spent. Of course, it's absolutely crap. That's not the way to do things. And even if you look at our websites for shopping in India, the most famous ones, Reader, Flipkart, whatever you have, you'll see that there is just too much clutter. The only difference is some have organized clutter, some have disorganized clutter. But the point is that we just love clutter. And how do we get out of it? I show you in one of the subsequent screens. So here we go. So how should we author great user interface design? I've explained the core tenets of why I feel interface design sucks. I think the first one is pretty obvious. You need to hire a designer. Now this is very interesting. When you interview a designer or when you go to pitch for a project as a designer, you may be the greatest developer in the room, but at that moment just leave the development skills out of the room. Focus on the skills of typography, the art of lettering, graphic design, the relationship between shapes and between lines and forms and guidelines and grids. You must have a great understanding of photography because you have to do a lot of non-verbal communication, and you must understand interaction design, how menus fall and how people will tap or what gestures to use. You need to have that understanding. It's the whole thing of interactivity. So a designer needs to be, at one level, I would say it's very interesting. He represents, or she represents, everything that there is to represent in an ordinary, not so bright, simple user who just stumbled across the site and just needs help. To say, so the designer should not show how smart or intelligent she is. She needs to show how cooperative and how comforting the design is to somebody who just stumbled across the design, and how you turn their anxiety into delight. So what that means is that the discussion should only be centered around topics of design. And if somebody talks about markup and jQuery and PHP, you should just have a face that says, I have no clue what you're talking about. And it's interesting when I draw people into these kind of discussions, I'm suddenly faced with a huge black hole because nobody really knows how to talk design. And I think here lies another deep cultural problem within our vibrant professional community and business community and even our academia. Design cannot be taught. Yes, design cannot be taught. It can only be caught. It cannot be taught. So design cannot be taught. It can only be caught. And what do people do? When you enter a design course, they immediately start teaching you skills. Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Acrobat, Beziers, pixels, photography, filters. But nobody is talking about design. How design itself is a philosophy. And when people move on, even if you look at their if you look at the CVs, if they're mentioning the skill sets of the time, it's wonderful to walk in and say, let's pretend I don't even know how to use digital tools. How can I design? And if you can, it's just a whiteboard and a pen, but you're solving a problem. So these are the 4 basic pillars of user interface design. And I'm just adding the 4th one on interaction to the classic and eternal pillars of design. So typography, graphic design, and photography. See, photography and graphic design are easy to understand. You've got to make icons, you've got to make illustrations, information charts, but graphic design makes sense. And photography is obvious. But what's typography? When people confuse typesetting with typography. Over these years of teaching design, I've understood that typography is the highest form of design, the ultimate art form towards which everything in design and photography and even fashion and architecture aspires to. Typography is the distillation of that. And, I think we should start from that topic first, ever, when we talk about design. So when I'm looking at a client's project, the first thing that I really obsess about for weeks is to find the right fonts. Find the font that will express, not just communicate, but express the mood and the feeling. Look at iOS 7 launched yesterday. One of the most significant things about it was the brand new font design and the typography that they have spent so much effort on into changing the complete expression of how they're moving away from this humanist trend to the more geometric trend of design with symmetry. Okay, next. So, I did mention this problem of templates and themes and using boilerplate stuff. But how do you design? Well, that's very simple. You just design with emptiness, with nothingness. You must design, and that solves the problem with clutter too. You must design with nothingness, with just a blank page, empty. And then you must sample and taste and sniff and scratch the content to understand what the content is about. What this means is that all of design today is driven by the vortex of containers. Now that I have a template, I must cut everything to fit into the placeholders in the container. So what's our approach to design in India today? We cut the man to fit the cloth. And what is the obvious way of doing design? We must cut the cloth to fit the man. So, in our case, content is king, content is queen, content is Emperor Akbar. We need to completely understand content, and content tells you how it needs to be visually expressed. So there is a different way in which you do a hospital for children versus the way you would do a college website, versus the way you would do a mobile app for blind people, by the way, which will help them move through a forest, for example. So the content will tell you what the user is expecting, what is the information, and so forth. So I think the thing that we all tend to forget is that the most crucial element of design today and user interface design is the information architecture. And I don't see any thought given to that. Here's the blindest way of doing information architecture. Company name, about us, vision, mission, values, team, followed by products and services, followed by why us, testimonials, services, and contact us, and off you go. Well, that's boilerplate. That's not information architecture. You need to go deeper in to understand what else you can bring to the table, or how else you could define this thing, bring it forth. So we could probably have an entire discussion on how content commands design, but that's for another rainy day. Next, I think we need to heal our understanding of space. And this is a very, very deep and profound topic. Indians live on a subcontinent. It's not a small country. It's a subcontinent. It's vast. Our sense of vastness is on our sense of physical and geographical space in this country, with its diversity of mountains, rivers, deserts, plains, valleys. I mean, it's huge, our ocean and our people, and then we have this huge understanding of time. It's not recent, it's not eternal, it's ancient. What we need to do is heal our understanding of space. We should not cringe from using space. There is no extra cost in building a web page that goes longer and longer or wider and wider. It's free of cost. If it's a cost issue, if it's this issue that a client demands that everything must fit into everything before the fold, then chuckle and show every possible device and say, where is the fold? It's an illusion. People will scroll up and down. So, yeah, space is a big thing. If it's a mobile app and you don't want to scroll, well, then add n number of multiple screens and have a very interesting way of moving through them. But I don't understand why everything needs to be congested. And here are my tips for space. Some very simple tips. Let the empty space do the talking. Let everything exist on its own. The word exists has roots in Latin. It means to stand out against nothingness. And our culture and our philosophy is the one that's brought to the world the philosophical concept of shunya, nothingness, and that everything is coming from shunya, from nothingness. But why the hell doesn't that happen in our interface? Why is everything coming from a cluttered mind and not nothingness? I must share that my personal method and approach to design is that when I want to unclutter my mind and start design, I simply enter into at least a 1 hour meditation. And after that, when my mind is calm and everything is still and everything, I start designing and I can feel the vibrations of emptiness in the design. If you take your call, you like to smoke a cigarette, you like to just sleep for some time, whatever you like to do, your call. So how else can you heal your space, your understanding of space? All those gaps you put between paragraphs and everything. Well, how about doubling or tripling or quadrupling the amount of space you'd like to give? You design buttons. Why are you making buttons for mouse mouse pointers or for small children's fingers? Make them big, fat, huge, blingy. Doesn't matter. But definitely have lots and lots and lots of space. And just playing it. If you live in a congested room or congested colony, or the room's cluttered or everything, well, time to get even. Take revenge. Go into your user interface design and use a lot of space as catharsis. So when I've taught design, I've actually done this, and I've had students even laugh at me when I tell them, just leave the page empty and just add, a little element there. And when they've done that out of trying to mock me, they're stunned when they see how well it works actually. And then I can see that healing happen. Oh wow, space is everything. To use a white space or nothing. And I cannot explain how important it is to explain this. I mean, you walk into Indian markets and you just look up at all the signboards and into commercial spaces, and you look at the signboards and it's such a clutter. You know, you walk into a small grocery shop, everything's cluttered, everything's disorganized. You know, they just are too hasty and anxious to push everything out of the door. So we need to heal ourselves. We must do that. Okay. I think our approach to design is that design must fill every placeholder in a template. And if you do, you make great design. My approach is that a client has come to you or you are undertaking a project because there is a problem. And design must solve that problem. So let's look at design. Whether there's traffic and traffic lights and the way roads are designed, that's a problem that design can solve. There's a problem with the way we try to book train tickets. Well, that's a problem, and we must define the problem. A good designer spends 90% of her energy doing a lot of research into defining exactly what the problems are. And if the problems can be identified and specified and made very, very specific, the solution is self-evident. It's hidden in the problem. So I feel that design must solve a problem. We must write down all the problems that we have to solve. Simple problems. That my website should look distinct from my competitors, or my app should look distinct from so-and-so app. Second thing, that my design must help my end user achieve so-and-so goals, and must take care of these pain points. And what are these pain points? These pain points are problems. So let's find them out, And if there's any moment of hesitation or wavering or bounce rates or something like that, these are problems, And then we have to understand tangible return, At the end of the day, what are we trying to do? The client should activate something to subscribe or order or do something. So, what's that actionable item? And so forth. Or even if it's just to inform or entertain and so forth. So if you understand this idea that you are actually a solution provider and that you are actually making the world a better place, you have a mission in your work. This is one of my deepest core in design. In India, we focus on the verbal. We must focus on the non-verbal communication. Have you ever dreamt at night? If you do, you will notice that in your dreams, you don't really hear anything. Thoughts come and go, but everything is non-verbal. It's visual. Dreams are visual. Even when you think you hear music, you'll see that it's the thought of music. It's not really the actual clang of music that you hear. And you will see that a lot of stuff is visual. Somebody is raising a finger to point away, or some event happens and unfolds, but it's all non-verbal. And I feel that this stuff of dreams is what design is about. To understand this, I would partly recommend books from Joseph Campbell, especially The Hero with 1,000 Faces or The Masks of God. And this whole understanding of anthropomorphology would explain why non-verbal communication is important. So if you're making a website for an airline or for a car manufacturer, something about the essence of their products, of services, of their corporate culture, or anything or everything should seep through, and you should be able to see that. So one of the best ways of testing this is to complete a design, then go to Google Translate and translate everything into a language you do not understand. Okay? If you're Indian and you don't understand Mandarin, perfect. Make the whole damn thing in Mandarin. Or if you don't understand even another Latin language, let's say like Greek or French, push everything into that. Now look at your design. Because what you're doing here is you're really reflecting how people look at the web. Often you yourself land on websites where you can't understand the language. So try the opposite, can somebody understand your interface design if you don't know the language? And in fact, are there things there that you can remove verbally and replace with non-verbal communication? If you could close your eyes and dream what you design, how would your dream talk with you? These are all very, very powerful ideas of design. And if you follow them through, and if you can play with them, you'll see that you've really done a wonderful job of design. Not only that, you'll also find that you'll understand the power of using mnemonics. So what's a mnemonic? A mnemonic is a design element that actually makes a design or a metaphor stick in a person's head. So the Apple logo has been written. If it weren't written, you wouldn't probably remember it. So these are things that aid recall. These are very intelligent and clever tools of design. So the nonverbal communication would actually speak and express. And you need to really understand how to do that. All right, next. Okay, it's time to chuckle. I think we need to be authentic in your design. So you should actually feel that, all right, this is authentic. You know, half the time you know that this is a pretentious website or a pretentious app or something. Either it's amateurish or it's pretentious. So what do I mean by authentic? You know, let me start with the first thing that I love to really attack here. We are a country of 1.1 billion people. By the time this talk ends, we'll probably add maybe another million people at the rate of birth that's happening in this country. Now, the question is, why do websites use Caucasians, white people, for, let's say, the photography on the contact us page? You'll see you'll see, a westernized or a Western European or American or white female or male sitting with a headset or something. That's not your company. That's not true about yourself. Why are you lying on your website? And sometimes I joke with clients that in a country of 1.2 billion people, we probably have 2 billion Caucasians, but all through our websites. I just don't understand this problem, and I think we just need to get rid of it. We just need to be authentic. We just need to show a better visual, real people. So that's important. The second thing is, this handshakes, contact us, handshake. Very unoriginal. The third is, of course, the use of clip art. A client thinks that if I paid a designer, I don't need to spend and invest in illustration or infographics or icons or anything like that. And it's great to use clip art because that's your job. You're a curator. Clip art is pathetic. Clip art has become part of the design because, as I said earlier, most designers are really developers or production people who are actually forced to handle design, and they can't hold the pencil straight or something, so they will jump to clip art. And the third thing is that India has been spoiled by Corel Draw, which is actually templateware for design, and so they use the idea of jumping into millions of images for clip art to show any damn thing. And I think this is a bad idea, at least 3 decades old. Drop it. Sometimes what I do is, if I can't come up with a visual idea, I may look at clip art, think of something, and then I'll sit down and start drawing something by hand to follow with the art direction, the creative direction in which I'm trying to visualize the design. So I think this copy and paste clip art idea should simply disappear from design. Okay, now this is laughable. Auto scroll ticker text. You must have seen them on especially websites. Just open this web page, everything works, and then suddenly here comes this text scrolling from right to left as if it's an Indian wedding procession of some very important text, the latest news or something. And it is so infuriating because I believe that a web page needs to be still. Let people enjoy it, enjoy its stillness, not give it pace. Let people discover it at their pace. And then let things move at their command. This is interaction. And if you want to show something moving, make it a video, and that's good. But why do you have these sprites moving along, or why do we have text scrolling? It's such a bad idea. Let people discover it, and show them more if you can, or show snippets. But scrolling text, oof. I think the idea was okay. It was gimmicky. It was like television, and then television aped the web. But for heaven's sake, you should probably put sites that use ticker tapes into a hall of shame. I may add here that even starbursts, especially when done quite pathetically, are very, very bad. Now this is very discreet. I'm saying, some websites, especially government and PSU types, will start with a message from the chairman. Well, Mr. Chairman, with due respect, nobody's interested. And this, I'm saying bluntly and boldly, and it's important to understand that the king is not the chairman or the designer. The king is the customer, the end user, the viewer. And what you must understand in India, design is driven by either being corporate obsessed or self-obsessed or product obsessed or service obsessed. And that's why most things fail. What you need to do is to be market obsessed. And when you're market obsessed, you're thinking about, what does this poor, frightened user want, hesitatingly coming to my site or to my app. And how can I fulfill that and turn this, this curious or apprehensive nature into delight, comfort, and loyalty? And the moment you start thinking about the market rather than yourself, instead of being self-obsessed, you become market-obsessed, automatically messages from the chairman would disappear and you come up with your value proposition immediately that, you need to be here because this is what I'm going to offer you, and so forth. Okay. The next thing and the last thing is that if you follow these steps, you'll find that your design becomes eternal. It starts moving towards being what I call eternal design. And what's eternal design? A sense of design that is not driven by trend. It's not driven by the latest gimmick. That's not driven by the latest jQuery, shoebang, some stuff. And an eternal design is something that just shines through with its vibrancy, its authenticity, and everything. And I think that if you can understand how in the human subconsciousness, a dream can always resonate, and people can have the same things and dreams and wishes through centuries and cultures, and that's what design is about. You'd find that you have to stop being into communication and into being into expression. And the moment you can express rather than just communicate in your design, to move into the eternal. So here's what I would recommend to everybody. Try to understand whether your design would have made sense 20 years ago. And even if you're using new technology, well, forget about it. Don't focus on the technology. Focus on the design. And then ask yourself if it would make sense, let's say, 50 years ago. And if somehow it can, in whatever way, you understood that you made good design. So now, that's the end of my slide presentation. It will be published onto SlideShare within an hour from now, so you may share it further. And I hope you may use this as a reference to clients who are, who insist that you plagiarize, you use templates, or use clip art, or do all the things that are a total no-no here, and that you find repeat inspiration in what's being shared. Over to you guys to your questions.
Hello, Renu. You can ask your question.
Yes.
Renu, I have unmuted you. You can ask your question.
Yeah, hello.
Hello. Renu, I have unmuted you. You can ask your question. Renu, are you there?
Anybody else with a question? Vinay, I don't think that I can hear.
Hello, Samir. Hello, Samir. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah. Just shoot your
yeah, I
question.
can.
Okay.
Okay, my question is to for Niyam. I want to know like what kind of tools he used for designing the web pages. Like, does he prefers vector-based tools or pixel-based tools?
Brilliant question. Your name is Samir?
Yeah, my name is Samir Batra.
Okay, Samir, great talking with you. And I think that's a very nice question. What tools do I use? A true designer does not care about tools. Okay, I'll tell you the tools that I've used for design. 1 hour walk in the evening staring at the sky and then looking at clouds and birds and saying, oh my God, I just got an inspiration for a design, and then stopping excitedly and drawing with a twig in the sand. That's my design. Sometimes using a paper napkin and sketching at the back of it. Sometimes I use my mobile note, my Galaxy Note, and I scribble away with a stylus, and I make my designs with those. Then sometimes I use pencil and paper, whiteboards, sometimes just talking and conceptualizing, sometimes dreaming. And the moment I want to start designing, when you ask me for my specific tools, oh, I think that comes in my hand. These days I've become rather fond of using Inkscape, and that too under Linux and Ubuntu. But sometimes I just jump out of it, like I'm just doing this amazing design these days. And while using Inkscape, I actually moved to my mobile and I downloaded a calligraphy software and I started using the stylus to do calligraphy there to come up with a new kind of art sense for my design. Sometimes I use GIMP for photo and pixel editing. In between I played with things like, Cinepaint. And believe it or not, once for a slide presentation, for even publication design, and use software like OpenOffice or anything. So I think, once you understand design as a discipline, the tool must disappear. You get this? And that's great fun because then you can just use anything. And once I was conducting a training in design, and we actually did this, that week after week we kept changing our tools, just so that people would overcome their whole obsession with tools and completely focus on design. And I mean jumping from software to software, and jumping from platform to platform, and jumping from media to media. It's brilliant. So I hope that answers the question, Samir.
Yeah, thanks for the reply.
Thanks, Samir. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Vinay, anybody else with questions?
Yeah. Few more people are there. Devraj, I'm unmuting you. You can ask your question.
Yeah. Hi, Niyam. Can you hear me?
Hi, Devraj. I can hear you. Tell me what can I do.
Yeah. Hi, Niyam. Niyam, actually, by profession, I'm a QA, right? So actually, I need to understand one thing.
You are a?
Yeah, QA, quality analyst.
Oh, you're a QA. Okay, brilliant. Okay. Hello. Devraj, I can't hear your.
I think Devraj got disconnected. Now Dev Kumar. Dev Kumar, I'm unmuting you.
Yes, can you hear me please?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dev Kumar, hi.
Hi. Niyam, I was wondering that all the time you have been telling us that designing should be original, follow no rules, don't follow any templates, use blank spaces, as if it is something, a piece of art.
Right.
Am I right in saying so? It's certainly a piece of art, that designing the user interface is a piece of art. And for a piece of art, basically we can't lay down any rules or regulations or this thing, you can't do this thing, you should do this thing, you should not have moving, scrolling this thing. You should not. Okay, art is an art, and somebody may like that piece, somebody may not like that piece. It varies from individual to individual. So saying that this thing sucks and this thing doesn't suck is something which I feel
offending, isn't it?
Not offending, but something which is it should not be that way.
Okay. See, the thing is that the reason why I mention these things is because it's like music. When you want to compose music, when you want to create music, you have two choices. One is to plagiarize or to base yourself on something there and then do something similar. Or you can just be hit by 100% inspiration and just compose music out of silence. Now, once you do compose out of silence, there are still some hidden guidelines, rules, like your sense of rhythm, your sense of melody and harmony. Follow intuitive rules, you see, and they really work. So the reason why I mentioned these things like using ticker tapes and, and avoiding the use or all these things is because I've seen that they don't solve the problem, they cause problems. And this was just so that I could bring the discussion to specifics as well. As examples, actually if you notice that slide mentioned there's lots more. And these are just indicators. I'm sure that we can take ticker tape and make it into an art form. And this is called recension in art. It's called recension in art and design. When you take something and you make it, you reuse it flamboyantly, you reuse it with intelligence and creativity, you infuse fresh energy into it. It's like doing the remixing in music, taking a 1960s song or something which is now tied to your ears and remixing it for the new age. But if you just go on playing the same Stockholm record, there's something very unconscious about it. So of course design is circular. It doesn't go forward, we keep going around in circles. So we moved from serifs to sans serif, we go back to serif, we moved from white collars to colorless, we go back to white collars, and so forth. And this is a very, very good thing about design. So I'm sure that if you have to do something, you have to reinterpret. You have to say, all right, let's make it retro. For example, the rotary dial on a telephone has come back. But as a fashion statement, as a design in the window, it has nothing to do with, first we rethought what to do with the redial, with the rotary dial on telephones. We came up with the punch card, we came up with mobiles, so we moved forward. But imagine if we were stuck with that on our mobiles today. It would be a problem, not a solution. But today, when we do sell a rotary dial with a mobile as an accessory, that's a very clever and fun fashion accessory and designer-oriented fun. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. I'm saying these are examples of problems that we end up creating in design. And if solved, you can find better ways of doing the same thing. In fact, I want to explain this point even deeper. Every aspect of design has to have thought behind it. It needs to be mindful. I call this, Buddha is in the details. Why? Everything needs to be questioned. Everything needs to give its reason for existence. And that's brilliant, because the moment you go very deep into it, you will find that, there are so many obvious problems which are there for people that can be solved. So I hope, Dev Kumar, that answers your question.
Sure, it does. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I have got one more submission to make. Please, the voice of the speaker is very, very faint. The person has to strain quite a good bit. Please,
speaker too soft? Is my voice too faint?
Yeah, voice is too faint. We have to really strain to hear you clearly. So
please, okay, Dev Kumar, we will
a little nearer to the mic.
Okay, Dev Kumar, we will note your feedback and we will work on it. Sure. Okay, we are actually running out of time, so just have a last question. Ishan, I'm unmuting you. You can ask your question.
Okay. Hi, Neem.
Hi, Ishan.
Hi, I'm calling from Bangalore. I have a question that are we putting too many constraints on our designers at the start of the design process? Like, for example, with the array of devices and screen sizes available these days, there's a trend that every website needs to be responsive. And we put these kind of conditions at the start of the design process. And maybe these things constrain the designer, and maybe a site does not need to be responsive. And the possibilities on a desktop version are more than, say, a mobile device.
Okay. Oh, now that's a very sophisticated question. Should design be responsive? So you're talking about one aspect of design, let's say a web page, a web, especially web, isn't it? And whether it should be responsive or not. You see, the thing is that we have to look at our reach. and how far can we go now? Now this is a very interesting topic. Do you have resources? Can you design for every device? You know, and how many people and what percentage of people are using what sizes of the design? And you know, one of the great things about design is that for centuries, design was always cut in stone. Design was always inked on paper. Design was never fluid. Design was never dynamic. Design was static, you know. It was embossed or it was encrusted. I mean, look at the Taj Mahal, you know, in India. You know, the design has been chiseled there. But today we are challenged, and designers have a real problem thinking fluid. You know, and I thought that designers would find it damn easy to think of fluid design. I mean, they've been fighting with the constraints of a static or a conforming page. You know, a magazine, page after page in a magazine is the same size, you can't change it, and so on. Or even a Hollywood film, that it has to be maximum 40, 75 minutes to 90 minutes or something. But on the web, no rules apply. And when I say web, I actually mean new media. You know, everything is fluid, everything is open. And I think for a long time it was a major challenge for designers until I think a decade later they understood that we must embrace this. That we must be able to design when required in fixed design or fluid or responsive or adaptive or something else altogether. Or, you know, chuck out the design and say, no, let's make a mobile app for this here. Or, you know, let's not even have it on the web. Let's probably send it out as brochures to people. So I think the best way to solve this is two-pronged. First, look at the dynamism of design today as a creative media, as a challenge, as something very exciting to play with, and not to be apprehensive or afraid of, but something that is fantastic to play with. And second, question from the point of view of reach. You know, every client, everybody, every project, you know, ultimately designers and publishers, their idea is the word publishing comes from the word public, to go to public. So the idea is to go to as many people out there, let your design go touch people. So you have to see that, you know, whether making it adaptive does it, and if it does, then go ahead and do it because it's solving a problem. You know, you're not looking at, you know, my design got constrained, whether it solves my problem. So I would take that approach, and you know, it would work. In fact, let me share with you that in 1 year, in the same calendar year, I did 3 kinds of design. The one demanded that it should be fixed because of the nature of the design and communication. The other was fluid. It was just fluid, and the third was adaptive. And it was pretty interesting that how each one fulfilled the need in design. And one was also a mobile app. And it was pretty interesting how all 4 of these things had to be done because of the problems that we were solving through the approaches. I hope that answers your question, Ishan.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Welcome. Right, Vinay, we are out of time?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks, Niyam, for this wonderful talk.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for coming in.
And thank you guys for attending this webinar. If you have any questions or any feedback, you can drop us a mail at webinars@sreason.in. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.